Spent a long time this week covering the extremes of opinions on the Minnesota Vikings season, but how do I think it's actually going to go? That'll be today on Locked On Vikings.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. Those of you who actually listen to the episodes. We've had some problems with people who want to comment on what is said in the episodes, but do not listen to it. And we can say anything we want about them because they're not listening. Today on the show, okay, so here's what this week has been, right? On Monday, I did a show that was like overwhelming positivity. Everything that could possibly go right is going to go right. Here's how it's all going to look. Super Bowl, we love it. On Wednesday, I did the opposite show. Everything that's going to go wrong. Here's why everything is bad. Here's why everything is going to get screwed up. A short that was clipped from that episode went kind of viral. People are very mad about it. They can listen to the show. They can listen to the whole week of shows. I would love if they did that out of a sense of hate. Listen to the ads too. It's great for retention. Leave a comment, an angry one too. It all helps me. You feed me. I love you. So today on the show, what I want to do is my actual prediction. What do I think will happen? What you're not going to get today is like a record prediction. That's not really what I'm here. I could tell you 10-7 or whatever and give you some responsible number that you'll forget about later. But rather, how is the season going to go? Well, like, what's the vibe of the year going to be? And as with all things, right, I gave you the extreme on one side, the extreme on the other side, but the truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle. I can be pretty confident in that. It can always get worse, and we can always find a way to make it better. But I want to go over some of the main points that I made in both of those previous episodes. So go listen to them, okay? They're fun bits. And then come back here, and we can sort of talk about how I actually feel about some of that stuff. I wanted to present the arguments in as good faith of a way as I possibly could. And then come back and say, okay, here's what I actually think. Plus, later in the show, I asked you for some bold predictions. So thank you if you responded, probably via Blue Sky or Reddit. I didn't put out the call on this show. However, I have changed the question doc for Town Hall Tuesdays. So if you want to submit a question for Town Hall Tuesday or a hot take, you can still do that as we've been doing all off season. That's all going to be the same on Tuesdays, but there is a new field now for bold predictions that are like game by game bold predictions. So on Monday morning, we'll go over the bold predictions for the Bears game specifically. Today, we're going to do bold predictions for the whole season. And if you get one right, I got something special for you. We'll go over that later. For now, let's actually do the predicting. So maybe the biggest question, the one I get all the time, is how good JJ McCarthy going to be, right? In the positive episode, I talked about how all of the narratives that sort of worked against him in Michigan were kind of bunk, how he's looked really great in camp, how the team has put their full-throated support behind him, and how he is surrounded by a ton of talent and maybe the most respected QB whisperer in the NFL, at least right now. I tend to think that that is closer to the truth than what I said in the negative episode, which was basically just reciting those narratives that followed him around at Michigan and the fact that he got 2 knee surgeries, which is a really bad faith way of putting that. But I hear it all the time, so I said it on that show. That, oh my God, his knee is never going to hold up or anything. No, he got a little bit of a cleanup. That's actually not that weird of a thing to happen. It's just not always reported on when you get a meniscus, a full meniscus repair, which is what he got in the first place. Either way, the knee injury has been a thing of the past since April. And if anyone's actually bringing it up to you, they're probably being in just as bad a faith as I was on Wednesday. But the real expectation for JJ McCarthy for me is, and I've said this before on the show, is somewhere between he's a rookie, he's going to make young boy rookie mistakes, and hey, this is a second-year player, we kind of want to see a step up, right? If you look at the other rookies that played last year, right, the other quarterbacks from the class, save Jaden Daniels, who had a superstar year, but, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, if you look at the way that all of those, at least Locked On hosts, but if you look at the way that people discuss those quarterbacks, it's all about, okay, here's all the things they did, and there's some good in there, and there's some bad in there. And there was this like sort of reasonable sort of expectation that you're going to get some good, some bad. They're young, they're a rookie, they'll make some mistakes, but you saw a flash here or there. Kind of with everybody, right? Even Penix, who didn't play a lot, but still show you something. But all of them are now going into this year, and you're saying, we need to see a step up from you. We need to see the next level. If that's all you are, it won't be good enough. We need more. And it's your second year, so we expect more. And I think there's still some level of that from you with McCarthy. Even though we didn't see anything from him, I still want to see more than a whole bunch of rookie mistakes. I know we're going to see some. We're going to see some young quarterback mistakes, especially in these first couple games. If he gets blitzed a lot, if there's a lot of pass rush, and he has to really process things quickly, manage the game under a lot of physical pressure and just see how things go a little bit more quickly. And, veteran DBs, veteran D-line, veteran linebackers, guys that are going to know how to like trick a young quarterback. He's going to deal with all that stuff, right? We've been on the right side of that for a long time with Brian Flores now, where every time he sees a young quarterback, he can basically run circles around him and force those guys to process more than they're capable of doing. And I'm sure that McCarthy will be the victim of some level of that from defenses. And as good as the talent on the offensive line is, the injury point that I made on Wednesday, which was the one that went viral, I think does hold a little bit of water. I think it's a genuine concern that the Vikings are the Vikings going to be able to stay healthy and keep this awesome core around JJ McCarthy as it was designed. I don't think you can just expect everyone to play all 17 games. At some point, backups are going to go in. Where are they going to be? What impact are they going to have? And how's McCarthy going to deal with it? I think all of those are valid things to be very worried about. We can't really know how it's going to manifest or how many games it's going to cost them or anything like that because we don't know the nature of it. But it's going to happen. We live in the real world. Somebody's going to get hurt. It's just how it goes. But every time I start thinking kind of in that like doomsayer's world, like every time I start really naysaying, I start thinking about like, okay, so what problem, like I'll go further down the line of thought. What problem does that present? Let's say a lineman or two gets hurt. What problem does that present? Okay, well, that presents pressure. And okay, so if a guard loses his rep and there's pressure in McCarthy's face, what does he tend to do about that? We've seen plenty of that at Michigan and even in the preseason. He tends to take a little step in the pocket and rescue the pocket. Or if he does have to bail out of the pocket, he tends to make a pretty good play out of that, like the fourth down we saw against the Texans. Or there are plenty of examples from college of him, making a throw on the run, and he did some in camp as well. So we know that they're still emphasizing that. In the scramble drill world, all that stuff's really good. So when I think about those problems and I go, well, is JJ McCarthy going to be able to handle it when so-and-so goes down or so-and-so goes down? And the answer to a lot of them is like, yeah, kind of. Like, I kind of think he can. Look, if Christian Darrisaw doesn't play all year, let's say he tears his other knee or something horrible, right? Or Justin Jefferson misses a bunch of time. That's going to have a really big impact on the offense. And we'll talk about Christian Darrisaw's likelihood to play on Monday morning. Since it is a Monday night game, we'll get the whole injury report. So we'll table that for now. He was a DMP on Thursday's practice, although the journalists all kind of said that felt like it was part of the ramp-up plan, not like a concern or a setback or anything like that, for whatever that's worth to you. But we'll check back in on that after the weekend. But if he misses like extended time with like another injury or something, or you lose Justin Jefferson, yeah, the offense is going to change a lot. But if you lose like Will Fries for a little bit and Blake Brandel has to come in instead, like that drop off is a lot different, right? I like Will Fries a lot. He's no Christian Darrisaw. Or if like Ryan Kelly goes down, you have to put in Michael Juergens and they feel good about that. Like that's a different proposition. Or if, Aaron Jones got hurt. Okay, well, Jordan Mason goes in. That's not going to have a huge impact on JJ McCarthy. So I think about it and I go, okay, we are a little bit resilient to that. It's going to happen, but we are a little bit resilient to it. And that gives me a lot of hope for what JJ McCarthy can do. But I need to be really clear here because what's going to happen is not going to match how I think we should feel about what's going to happen. McCarthy's going to make mistakes. He's going to throw a dumb interception. He's going to take an idiot sack. He's going to miss a throw or something like that. And I think bad faith actors And I don't just mean, AI chatbots on Twitter, that's who you're mostly talking to, by the way. But I don't just mean that. I mean, national reporters who seem to have had like a really pointed, who made a pointed effort to paint JJ McCarthy in this light as this guy who's already failed before he's even taken the field. Those actors are going to jump on that like you threw a piece of red meat into a piranha-filled pond. They're going to fly to it. And I don't think that that's necessarily fair, but that doesn't mean we need to coddle him and we need to, do head pats every time he does anything just a little bit right. He should be expected to run this offense reasonably well, but there's a difference between that and being perfect. And that's my expectation for him. That's what I think we're going to get out of JJ McCarthy. I think we're going to be able to describe it as pretty good. And if we can't, and I'm wrong, that's fine. That's why this is like kind of a soft, nebulous prediction. But I think we will be able to. I have seen enough from McCarthy in camp and preseason, and then in last year, and from what I already understood about him from Michigan, to see that this guy is not going to be an overwhelmed deer in the headlights. I'd be pretty surprised to see that. It's not impossible by any means, because we haven't seen him in true NFL action and things are different. And maybe those things are the important things and we haven't been able to see him yet. But that's what I expect from JJ McCarthy. But what about the rest of the roster? That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by PrizePicks, a daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. PrizePicks has been my main squeeze for the last year or two now. I have loved PrizePicks quite a bit. I'm already deep in it. I've got season-long ones. I had a couple of plays going on for the Cowboys-Eagles game because they had a Dak Prescott half a yard promo that was very awesome. I talked about it earlier in the week. And if you combine that with a Saquon Barkley rushing or receiving touchdown, then you could get 2.25 times your entry, which is exactly what happened, and I'm very happy about it. It's quick, it's easy, it is my favorite way to follow along with football games that I otherwise do not care about. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. By the way, you get another one of those max discounts, Lamar Jackson half a passing yard. If you think Lamar Jackson can get at least one half of one passing yard, hey, maybe you don't. That's between you and your God. But if you do, you can get it at PrizePicks. Once again, that is code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. This episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. They offer more than just safety. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anybody else, at least as of August. And just like an athlete or a coach focuses on every minute little detail of their play, their technique, or their process, Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. Whether it's a quick drive or to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving along with the Locked On Vikings podcast. So enough about JJ McCarthy. What about the rest of the team? What can we expect from the Vikings? Again, I'm not going to give you a win total, okay? And if you've been an everydayer for a long time, you know kind of why I try not to put specific numbers on it, because then it just becomes about the number. If I say they're going to win 10 games, and I was right about all the reasons, but they missed a kick and they only win 9 games, then people will focus more on the fact that I said 9 and I said 10 and it really was 9, rather than the real understanding of what I think will go on. So here's what I think about the whole offense. I do think JJ McCarthy is going to be a reasonable quarterback, although limited. I think we'll see some misses. We'll see some dumb interceptions, but we'll see an offense that moves the ball okay. I don't think we're going to see a very different run game. I don't think we're going to see more of a commitment to it. I don't think we're going to see more volume to it. I don't think we're going to see a ton more variety to it. I just don't think Kevin O'Connell works like that. I kind of wish he did. I look at what Ben Johnson did with the Lions and Dan Campbell over there. I don't think that Ben Johnson's doing the same thing with the Bears. I don't think he has the horses for that, but I do think the Lions still have most of the horses for their thing. And they ran a very diverse, very difficult to prepare for run game that really got the Vikings goat. And I think they're going to be able to do it again. And I just don't think that the Vikings prioritize it that way. And then, they prioritize the pass game more than the run game. You kind of want that. That's something that we've all been asking for years and years and years, especially with Mike Zimmer, running the ball too much or whatever, and not putting the ball in the hands of Justin Jefferson and like volume, run pass ratio stuff. We've had all those debates. So I'm not going to be like too critical of Kevin O'Connell for being like pass first. He's coordinated very good offenses doing that. But I do kind of wish you had a counterpunch sometimes. And something that I don't think that the Vikings have really done a lot to solve is their incapability of keeping their foot on the gas, foot on the throat, boot on the throat kind of stuff. You get up 2 scores, and because you can't consistently run, you either go into run game mode, try to chew the clock and go 3 and out, or you try to throw the ball a whole bunch and you lead a lot more volatility. You can invite mistakes that way. If you're going to keep throwing all the time because you can't run, you also can't really throw like at the sidelines all the time. Any incompletion stops the clock, and it gets a lot harder to run out the time the way that you want to. So you can't really manage the game the way that you're supposed to because you can't execute the stuff you're supposed to call. It's a bit of a rock and a hard place when you don't have a consistent run game. I like the running backs, Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, a lot. I think in 2023, when the main guy was like Alexander Mattison, I blamed the poor rushing attack on those running backs chiefly. And I think it was a lot better in 2024, but it production-wise wasn't that much better in 2024. It still was a run game that was pretty bad relative to the rest of the league. So I don't think that it is something that will ever be the identity of a Kevin. The dude's a quarterback. He ain't going to be a run first coach. It's kind of just what you bought into. And I think coming off of Mike Zimmer, that's probably what the Vikings were after a little bit, was somebody who wouldn't be kind of stubbornly trying to stick to the grindy, nose to the grindstone, black and blue style that Mike Zimmer kind of championed when he was here. You're always looking for the opposite when you fire a coach and you go hire the next one. That said, I think they're going to be able to generate a lot of explosives, right? Justin Jefferson can generate explosives. Jordan Addison can generate explosives. TJ Hawkinson can generate explosives. And I think the deep accuracy JJ McCarthy thing is pretty overblown. He's going to be able to hit enough of these where they'll be able to just like rip off a chunk play and completely change the texture of a drive or maybe even a whole game. What I haven't talked about at all yet, though, is the defense. And what happens with the defense this year, I don't see a ton of reasons to believe that we're going to see much difference from the last 2 years of Brian Flores. Flores' defense relies on pre-snap trickery to screw up whatever you're doing on offense. He's going to sim people. He's going to creep people. He's going to rotate, right at the cadence. They're going to use the snap cadence to change the look at the last minute and cause chaos. That's like at the crux of the thing. And when you do not have a pre-snap process, it's a bit of an equalizer. Yes, that is harder for the offense. And typically when you're going into hurry up, it's harder for the offense to get their plays in. You can't have as much diversity of plays because you can only install so many things that can be run no huddle. You don't have access to the whole playbook when you go no huddle. And you're often under time pressure when you're doing that anyways. It's at the end of the half of the game. But when you get no huddle, especially if you catch Brian Flores' defense in a personnel package that you like, which is very possible. He subs all the time, and he often goes really, really far to the extreme. For example, taking out all the D tackles and having only edge rushers. And then suddenly they can no huddle, run the ball down your throat 4 times before you eventually just have to take a timeout because this is going to be a touchdown. I think you're susceptible to that. I think you're susceptible to 2-minute drills again. Remember, the Vikings defense was really bad at 2-minute drills because they couldn't use big, long snap cadences to their advantage. When an offense comes up to the line and the quarterback reads something and then he motions and then he reads what the motion told him and then he motions it back and then they do another thing and then there's a snap cadence. It's like when you do all that stuff, it gives the defense time to do their version of that, which is what Brian Flores is maximizing. That's where he has people creep up to the line, then back off, where he has somebody do an overhang, then back off, where he has a safety kind of wander around back there, not really sure where he's lining up or what the coverage shell I'm looking at is. That's where all that stuff gets useful. But in no huddle, you're not sitting there going motion. You're not taking 25 seconds at the line to call your play. It's probably an exaggeration, more like 15, but you're not taking 15 seconds at the line to call your play. You're just getting something down, set, hut, go. And once you get to post snap, like if the NFL suddenly, if you were like in a weird like Greek philosophy experiment where you never got to see pre-snap or between snaps anything, if you just saw from whistle to whistle and then you just like cease to exist like a baby's mother playing peekaboo with it, does this make sense? You would see the most simplistic defense in the league. And I know that's weird, but like the way that Flores covers, they've got like 3 or 4 coverage shells that mostly have the same rule set, but they don't have a lot of complexity post-snap. You kind of have a post-snap rotation, but it's a lot of we're getting to the same coverages and we're just putting everybody in weird places so you can't tell what we're getting to until the play has already, gotten well underway. But if you can't do that because it's hurry up, now you're just running preseason defense. You're just running vanilla stuff. And that's what happened in 2-minute drills. I'm worried about that. I'm worried that if you can find a way to take the blitzing away, to take the pre-snap disguising away, like have the right quarterback for the blitzing and have the right tempo to take the disguising away, Brian Flores is just sort of saying, all right, cover 3 this time. All right, cover 2 this time. All right, Tampa invert. And they're just doing that. The problem is, if you get to that point, we're already too deep for you to have a count. You're not installing a whole new defensive scheme just because one team happens to match up poorly with you. You're just going to do your best. And you don't really have the horses to do like simple stuff that feels really different, like just live in cover 1. Cover 1, rush 4. You don't have the corners for that. You can't just live in, easy cover 3 rip Liz. You don't have the guys outside for that, and I don't even know if you have the safeties for that, especially if Harrison Smith isn't playing. This is my concern. Those are the things that when Brian Flores' defense struggled, that is why, and none of that got fixed. What did get fixed, though, not to be too negative, was the interior pass rush. The Vikings couldn't get pressure off their interior, so the only ways they could get pressure was off the edge with Grenard and Van Ginkel and blitzing. But now you've got a couple of guys that can very much win inside and get pressure. So you can't just chip the 2 edges and then like live free anymore, which is basically what the Rams did in the playoff game. They just chipped all day and like Harrison Phillips and Jonathan Bullard couldn't beat the guard. So you're good there. So all in all, I think a lot of this stuff from this year is going to be similar to what happened last year. And the hope is that the rookie quarterback can kind of keep up with that pace, because that was a very, very, very good year, and that you can have a little bit more success in the postseason and have the postseason look a little bit more like the regular season did than it did for the 2024 Vikings. But these are all my reasonable predictions. This is my vibe for the season. You sent me stuff that is far less reasonable, and I love you for it. We're going to read those next on Locked On Vikings. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by DoorDash. It is almost time for the games to begin, and once they have begun, we will do something weekly powered by DoorDash that is as follows. Look, every week, somebody delivers for the Vikings when it matters most, and we will break that down. So before we have games to look at, for now, let's give it to Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who has delivered the Vikings another absolutely lights out free agent class. We are so excited about Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, and they all look like the real deal. Just like Kwesi has delivered for the Vikings, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you can save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. It's time for one of my favorite episodes of the whole year. Every year, we will do this in perpetuity for as long as I have this show, at least. That will be the bold predictions, season-long bold predictions this time. I also have a category for bold predictions for the Bears game. That's not what this is. This is for the whole year, And I asked you all for a whole bunch of them. Here's what this is. If this hits, I'll reach out to you. We'll work out some sort of prize. It'll probably be a charitable donation to an organization of your choice. But I like to keep veto power over that so that people can't like force me to donate to something that I don't necessarily want to. And maybe I'll get you a piece of memorabilia or something, but I'll make it worth your while. But I also want to keep it bold. I want to make sure that these are bold predictions. I'm not going to do what I did in past years where I only take the ones that are like so incredibly ridiculous that they'll never hit. I want a lot of these to hit. I want these to hit sometimes. I don't want them to hit all the time because then they're just regular predictions. But I do think it's fun when a bold prediction hits, and I want to give it a little bit more of a reasonable chance. With that said, here are the ones that I have chosen from the like 60 that you guys gave me. So thank you. Probably most of this is from the Vikings Reddit. So thank you so much to the Vikings Reddit. Never thought I'd say that. First one comes from Tong, who says that Jordan Mason outproduces Jones, and let's use fantasy points as the barometer here. Fantasy points makes this especially bold. Because you could argue that, like, from a yards per carry perspective, a lot of RB2s outproduce the RB1s because their legs are fresh. Like, that happens sometimes. But as fantasy points, volume matters. So you need Jordan Mason to truly get the RB1 job and outproduce Jones. I have been on records as, like, sharing this bold prediction a little bit, but acknowledging that it is bold. But the only thing is, look, if Aaron Jones gets hurt, a thing that happens to him a lot, Jordan Mason comes in, gets hot, they go with the hot hand. Like it's a situation I can like envision a little bit. So it's a bold prediction that I've said a couple times on this show and in like radio shows and stuff. So I love it, but I definitely see it as an unlikely thing. John the Jock says, so a bunch of you had Jordan Addison related ones. I went with this one, which is that Jordan Addison will have more receiving yards than Justin Jefferson despite his suspension. Nice and simple. More total season receiving yards. I think the main driver of people saying stuff like this is that Justin Jefferson missed most of camp and Jordan Addison and JJ McCarthy built quite the chemistry. Those guys had an awesome rapport, and Jordan Addison had a phenomenal, like, ungodly melt your face off camp, and JJ McCarthy kind of had that momentum with him. So you see that continuing, and then that Justin Jefferson turns out to not actually be. It's insanely bold. Justin Jefferson will be the leading receiver on the Vikings. He gets like 100 yards again. Jordan loves being mid, says Dallas Turner will have more sacks than Micah Parsons. I actually had to take a couple of Dallas Turner ones, but of course this one is so cute. Dallas Turner having more sacks than either Van Ginkel or Grenard would be bold enough, but shoot, let's throw in Parsons. Why not? And on the other side of the coin, JJ is short for Jerry Jones, says that Dallas Turner is destined to be a Dallas Cowboy. The Cowboys will trade for him before the deadline. I think we hear about this stuff. Like, I hear these predictions a lot when there is a not perfectly even distribution of talent, when there's a little redundancy. Oh, we have 3 edge rushers. Well, we only need 2. Trade 1. Get draft picks. Maximize. Min-max it. Eke the most value as possible. Probably not. They're probably just going to be really happy having 3 guys that they can use. And they'll probably have them on the field at the same time all the time. I mean, they've been pretty open about that. Milo Grams, as that was the phonetic spelling. There's lots of R's. Said only one of the AFC division winners from last season wins in 2025. Specified the Bills, but I'm not going to hold you to that. If it's just the Chiefs, and then it's like Dolphins, Bengals, Jaguars or something like that, I would give you this. Nick says that Brosmer starts at least 1 game this year. I believe Brosmer is going to be the emergency third. So that's going to be pretty tough. That would require injuries to both Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I mean, Carson Wentz did just join, and they do like Brosmer a lot. Maybe he is QB2. I don't know. But either way, injury is going to have to be heavily involved for this one to hit. Minnesota Sports Appreciator says that the new NFL record for longest kick will be against the Vikings this year. Okay, have you guys noticed that kickers are like sauced to absolute like ungodly levels this year? What is going on? Just in the opener, there was a 58-yarder. I think it was it was Jake Elliott. hits a 58-yarder. We had a 70-yarder in the preseason. What is going on? Everybody's trying these longer kicks, and they've figured something out. Either they've figured out like there's some new tech in like how kickers. I need to ask Kevin about this. He's my special teams guy. Kevin, I know you're listening. Tell me why kickers are doing this, or I need to like talk to a kicker. What happened to kickers? Did we all just like agree to like look the other way and let them take whatever performance enhancing substances that they want? Because if that happened, I'm for it. I'm into it. Let's let kickers just juice up like crazy. Let's go nuts. But if a new NFL record for longest kick does happen, it will be against the Vikings. We do know that the most powerful kicker in the NFL is the one that is playing against the Vikings. That has been true for like 15 years statistically. Like, it's not just a vibe because we're too stuck in our own echo chamber. Like, Vikings opposing kickers have been like number one in the league for like a while. And it's weird because you have very little control over that. I guess it's kind of a being in a dome thing, but also it's crazy how good opposing kickers are. So it's got to be against the Vikings, of course. Eric says that JJ McCarthy will finish the 2025 regular season with the highest QBR in the NFC North. QBR is an interesting selection for this stat. It's not one that I hear about nearly as much as I hear about like EPA or DVOA or whatever, but I think it's a good stat for quarterbacks. I think it's fine. So the highest QBR in the NFC North, I think Jared Goff's kind of a QBR god, isn't he? That's going to be the toughest one. With Caleb Williams, I do not believe running helps your QBR at all. The scramble drills will, though, because I mean those can turn into deep attempts sometimes, and that helps a lot with the QBR. And Jordan Love has to keep a lid on the turnovers, but the main competition is probably going to be Jared Goff. JJ McCarthyist says in his national championship winning season, JJ McCarthy threw 22 touchdowns on 332 attempts, 12 of them to his top wide receiver, Roman Wilson. KOC QBs averaged 617 pass attempts. That's a crazy number, by the way. Like, KOC QBs averaging 617 attempts. That's a wild number. My brain is still a little bit not used to the extra game in terms of like season long volume stats. Like, I'm still a little bit overly tuned to what's normal for a 16 game season and not a 17 game season, but still 617 is crazy. Which means JJ McCarthy will throw for 41 touchdowns and Justin Jefferson will catch 23 touchdowns from him, tying the single season receiving touchdown record set by 2007 Randy Moss. Okay. So there's a lot of specificity to this, and I'm not going to hold it to the specificity at all. What I am going to count this as is Justin Jefferson will catch 23 touchdowns and tie the single season receiving record. Tie or beat the single season receiving touchdown record. That's the part I care about. Justin Jefferson getting the touchdown record. Justin Jefferson is not really a touchdown scorer. This is a weird fantasy thing, by the way. If you just drafted him, he is a yard getter, but kind of not the touchdown scorer often. That is also an unbelievably unstable stat. It's totally the kind of thing that can bounce back and regress like crazy. So don't take that to the bank very much, but the Vikings offense scores a touchdown. He gets tackled at the 1 and then somebody else catches the fade, and in the red zone, it's a little bit harder for him to do to use the tricks that he uses to like beat bracketed coverage when he does beat bracketed coverage because you don't have as much space to work with. So it's a little tougher. That doesn't mean Justin Jefferson's like bad in the red zone or anything like that. He's still very good in the red zone. It's just that the amount of attention that he gets is a lot more costly because the margins are so much thinner in the red zone. And it's a lot easier for a quarterback to just throw it to someone else and score. So he like didn't get the touchdowns. So him to get 23, all of that would have to reverse, which it absolutely could. Touchdowns are weird. Weird stat. Brandon says the Vikings sneak into the playoffs and win 2 road games en route to the NFC title game. 1987 style, baby. We love it. Yeah, it's going to be a tough division to win. I think that they can be in it. I think they can absolutely throw their hat in the ring and have as good a chance as any of the other 3 teams in the NFC North, but it will be a tough division to win. And if they don't, they win the wild card, go be road warriors, win a couple games. I would love to see the Vikings win a playoff game for the first time since 2019 and the second time since 2009? Like we have not seen a lot of playoff wins. If you are a high schooler, you've seen like 2 in your life. It's not great. But Iceberg, the last one, we took it along, who took it a little further. And he says Super Bowl. That's the boldest prediction of all. I will talk to you all on Monday. And as always, Skull.